Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery who only featured for the first time on the channel quite recently, but I was impressed with the last beer and I'm curious to see how this one turns out. The last one was a little bit more kind of experimental if you like, but this one is one of their core range beers, so hopefully this is good as well. For this review then we are going to return to the Baltic Triangle in Liverpool, and we're having a look at my second beer from Love Lane Brewery. So this one is the Love Lane Pale Ale. It comes in at 4.5% ABV, and hopefully this one turns out to be as good as the last one. The other beer that I've reviewed from these guys was the Baltic Haze version 2, which was a really nice hazy New England IPA. I was really impressed with that beer. From what I gather, version 3 has been released and version 4 is on the way, so I'm sure those will be good as well. I do want to go and visit Love Lane at some point, but I think this one, to try one of their core range beers, this should be quite an interesting one. So fingers crossed this is a good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. A massive shout out and thank you in this review to my good friend Adam Johnson, who runs the channel Mersey Beers. He's got a really nice channel over there where he does different beer themed live streams. I'll put the link to his channel in the video description below, so do make sure you go over there and show him some love. He's kind of just getting started up, but a very nice guy, very knowledgeable about his beers, and it's always fun to have him on the different live streams. He's not been on one with me for a little while actually, so we will need to try and sort that out at some point. But a very nice guy, and a huge thank you to him once again for sending me that awesome box that you've seen a number of English beers from over the last little while. So yeah, pretty cool I have to say, and definitely nice to review one of his local breweries once again here on the channel. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed the kind of English mini-series that we've been having over the last little while. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Love Lane Brewery before, and hopefully we can add more to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite regularly at the moment, thanks to Adam and others. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Love Lane Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Love Lane Brewery, as I've told you before, are based in the Baltic Triangle in Liverpool, and the brewery was founded originally by Stephen Seifert, who is a former home brewer, and it was originally founded with the name Liverpool Craft Beer Company. So he started brewing commercially back in 2010, renting out an archway and experimenting in there, and he continued to expand and learn over the next few years before joining with a new partner. So this partner is Stephen Crawley, who's a former cricketer, and he worked as a national sales director and then the managing director of the Caledonian Brewery in Edinburgh, and he and his wife are the Higson's Brewery Company, and this company applied in 2015 to convert a former rubber factory in Liverpool into a brewery and distillery, and they began work on this site in August of 2017. But these days this building that we're talking about here, it can be found in the Baltic Triangle, and the venue is called H1780, which represents the year that Higson's Brewery was founded, and the H of course is for the name Higson's. But this premises opened in December 2017, and it consists of a brewery, gin distillery, 3 bars and a kitchen. It's a pretty impressive facility if you actually go and look at the pictures of it, but the brewery apparently can produce around 18,000 hectolitres of beer, and as of November 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced over 30 different beers under the Love Lane name, but they do of course produce beers under the Higson's name and stuff like this as well. So yeah, as I say, check out the website and have a look at some of the pictures of this. It looks like a really impressive facility. That Baltic Triangle area, it's kind of in the southwest, right on the water. It's in the southwest part of Liverpool, right on the water, and there's quite a few breweries based down there actually. There's some really interesting stuff going on down there, like Black Lodge and things like that. So I'm sure at some point I will get to Liverpool and film a few out and about videos with Adam. and things like that. That would be really cool to do a few out and about videos and do some tastings and things with Adam actually. So we'll see about getting that done. I do want to do a little bit of a kind of England tour and go and visit all the different beer tubing guys down there. It's something that I wanted to do last year, but unfortunately, this year 2020, but unfortunately COVID-19 got in the way of that. So yeah, we'll just need to see what happens going forward. But that's all we can really say about Love Lane Brewery for the moment, but hopefully you can see more beers from these guys and the other Liverpool breweries at some point in the fairly near future. But yeah, so if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. But yeah, let's get on and have a look at this beer itself then. And as I say, do make sure you go and check out Adam's channel. He very kindly sent me that crazy box with all these kind of English and Liverpool beers. So yeah, really nice artwork on this one. I do like that sort of tile thing there on that. I always find that quite interesting. I like these kind of mosaic-y tile type artworks. But there you can see the artwork on this is very, very slick. They've got different beers in the core range, of course, and it's just the kind of colour, from what I've seen, it's just the colour of the background and the little band down here that changes depending on what beer it is. This one, like I say, 4.5% pale ale. It says on the back here, the taste, citra hops give an intense tropical fruit aroma. Columbus and Centennial hops combine to give medium bitterness. This is balanced by biscuit and caramel flavours and the Golden Promise. Oh, Golden Promise is a very nice malt. I do like Golden Promise. But yeah, Columbus is a classic kind of bittering hop. It gives you a lot of kind of quite spicy bitterness. Centennial is quite lemony and zesty, and Citra is the kind of classic. It's one of the original sort of high alpha acid hops. Lovely mango notes and a few different tropical note complexities. Biscuit and caramel we like. Golden Promise malt me very like. So yeah, 4.5% pale ale this one. Let's get it out and get on with the tasting. 330ml can this. I'm not sure what the price of this one would be, because like I say, this was given to me by Adam, yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm curious to see what this beer has in store for us. I don't get to review all that many pale ales here on the channel, of course. I do wonder, because in Sweden there's not so many pale ales, and to be honest, I'm a little bit hazy, pardon the pun, on where the line is between pale ale and session IPA. Of course, the pale ale, the IPA, the double IPA and the barley wine are all related styles through the hop to malt ratio. That's what changes them and that's what defines them. But I've never really found the line where session IPA and pale ale, where the session IPA and pale ale differ, to be honest with you. And I think in Sweden we don't get too many pale ales, and it must be something to do with the tax on the beer or something like that. It's probably easier for them, and there'll be some reason that I think it's easier for them to make an IPA than it is to go for a pale ale. And I think people just, people prefer to have a sort of bigger beer, because I think they maybe don't session as often. They only really drink on Fridays and Saturdays and stuff, and they only really drink on the weekends here, although they will go out for like one beer during the week, but they don't tend to session, I think, as much as in England and stuff like this. But yeah, that's another story. But as I say, not quite sure where the line between pale ale and session IPA is, to be honest with you. And I don't get to review too many beers that are termed are explicitly termed pale ale, so this should be quite interesting. But as you can see with this beer, when we poured it, it had about a quarter to a 1/3 finger of a frothy white head there. That's just faded away to be a very thin foamy layer. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, and quite a few little ones going up towards the head, which incidentally has faded away to be a very kind of thin wispy layer. But yeah, it does look really quite nice. If we shine the light through this beer, it does have a wee tint of amber to it, but I would describe this one as being a little bit more kind of yellowy, actually, just a yellow with a light tint of amber to it. If I put my fingers behind the glass there, you can see this one is pretty damn clear, actually. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, actually, kind of what you would expect from a pale ale, and going by the appearance, it seems to be a little bit more of a kind of West Coast type pale ale, to be honest with you. Just a little bit of that kind of natural haze. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on then. Nothing too surprising about this beer. The obvious thing though would be it looks more like a West Coast pale ale rather than one of the more hazy New England ones that we are a bit more familiar with these days, I guess. But yeah, let's check out the aroma on this one then. Yeah, It's definitely got a bit of that kind of graininess that you would expect of a more English pale ale. I don't know whether this one is intended as more of an American or more of an English pale ale, to be honest. You know, I would say, yeah, you've got a nice bready base to this beer. It's got a little bit of a kind of white bready character, but also a little bit of a kind of wholemealy thing going on. I really like that about this beer. Yeah, it's got a nice little bit of a kind of wholemealy type thing going on. There's It's got a lovely bit of biscuity sweetness to it as well. Actually, it's a very straightforward malt base, to be honest with you, but I think it works very, very well. So yeah, you've got a nice bit of a white bready character to it. I think as the aroma progresses a little bit more, you start to get more of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready sort of thing. There's a bit of bread crust in there as well, and then on top of it, you do have a little bit of that kind of honeyish, biscuity kind of note. It's a little bit like McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. I hesitate to say that there's a straight up caramel to this one. To me, it's a little bit more of a kind of grainy brown sugar, like a honey, sort of honeycomb type thing that you get out of this. But yeah, McVitie's digestive biscuits in there, a little bit, as I say, of a kind of honey type thing. But yeah, the malt base goes together quite nicely. It does have a little bit of that kind of English graininess to it. As I've told you on the channel numerous times before, I've honestly never been a great fan of, like, you know, the English pale ales or the you know, the golden ales and stuff like this. For me, English beer is all about the stouts and the porters and stuff like that. For me, the traditional English beers I've always preferred the darker side of things. So I'm curious to see whether this one turns out to be more of an English pale ale, because I have actually found I've had some really nice examples. The one that springs to mind was another one that that Adam sent me. This one does remind me a little bit from the aroma of the pint from Marble Brewing Company. I forget the other name that beer has, actually, or was it Metric? Was it called? I think, yeah. But the pint Metric, whatever name you give that beer, this beer does, in terms of the aroma and stuff like that, remind me of that one a little bit, I would say. But it's got a nice malt base to it, this one. It comes across really nicely. Hoppy side of things then, you do get a nice little touch of earthiness out of this one. You get some nice big floral aromaticity out of it. You can smell a little bit of that spiciness from the Columbus in there, and you've got a little bit of a kind of grassy, zesty quality to it as well. On the fruity side of things, yeah, you can smell a wee bit of it. It's almost like a little bit apricotty and peary, if you like, and you know, Citra can give you these sort of impressions if you use it with quite a caramelly malt base. As I've told you in other reviews before, if you put hops in with different malt bases, they're going to behave a bit differently. So Citra, for example, it will give you, if you put it in a New England malt base with the oats and the wheat, it will give you a really smooth, juicy, bright mango, whereas if you put it in a malt base like this that's more caramelly and things, it behaves a little bit more kind of oily, to be honest with you. So yeah, just be aware of that. Just be aware of that with these beers. It comes across really really nicely in that sense. It's got a lovely balance between the breadiness and the maltiness, actually. So thumbs up to the beer. They've got a nice fruitiness in this. So I would say you can get a wee bit of the mango in there, but it's got a little bit of that kind of dried apricot-y, sultana, peary type jammy sort of thing. I would say that's what you get out of this beer. You do get a wee bit of the kind of lemony zest from the Centennial, but I would say, yeah, pears, apricots, a little bit of an oily mango underneath. It's got these kind of almost dried sultana type notes to it as well. I really like how this one goes together in that sense too. It's a lovely pale ale, this, so I really like what it has going on in terms of the aroma. So take a little bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into it. I always think that that's half the experience with craft beers, but we're going to taste this one now and see how we get on. So this is the Lovelane Pale Ale coming in at 4.5% ABV. Once again, a massive thank you to Adam over at Mersey Beers for making this review possible. Make sure you check out the link to his channel in the description below. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah, that's definitely more of an English pale ale for sure. But it's nice though. It's quite nice. I have to say, I think probably it's one of the things that maybe it's right for me to say that the combination. I don't really like the when it comes to lighter beers. I don't like the English malt English hop combination. I think that's maybe what I'd say, because I actually quite like. I found that I tend to quite like the ones where it's an English malt base and then American hops or New Zealand hops on top of it. I think maybe that's what it is. I think probably for me the more grainy English malt bases just need a little bit more kind of fruitiness and hoppiness to kind of balance it out a little bit more. So yeah, maybe that's one of the reasons why I haven't been such a great fan historically of the kind of lighter traditional English styles actually. But this is most definitely an English pale ale for sure. But I like the way the American hops balance it out actually, and it's interesting because I've had one of my favourite English bitters that I've ever had, and that's a style that I don't particularly like, was actually the one of the ones from the Brewery bitter, which is that was from Nerkia Kulta Brewery. And I'm trying to remember the one, or is that Nynäshamns own? Oh no, sorry, Örebro bitter is from Nerkia Kulta Brewery, and the Brewery bitter that I just mentioned is from Nynäshamns own brewery. Those are two of the oldest craft breweries in Sweden, but they have English bitters, and I think they use Cascade and stuff like that in them. And those are both very nice beers actually. And those were probably the first English style bitters that I liked. And I think the reason I liked them was because they had the American hops in them. So maybe what I should be looking for from the English breweries is like the traditional English malt base with the American hops or with the New Zealand hops in it. I think for me, I just think the English hops are better in dark beers, to be honest with you. So yeah, maybe that's something I should think about going forward. But this beer, 100%, is an English. It's an English pale ale for sure. And yeah, it's quite nice and drinkable. You could tan a couple of these quite easily. I'm not sure that you could convince me to convert from German pilsners and Helles and things like that as the choice of session beer to an English pale ale. I think that's a bit of a step too far, to be honest with you. But this one is it is a very nice drinkable English pale ale, this one. So yeah, I like where they're going with this. I do like where they're going with this beer. But yeah, let's try and break the flavour down a little bit for you. So straight away with this beer, you get that nice white bready malt base that just blankets the middle of your tongue here. You can feel as the flavour progresses, you do get a little bit more of that kind of wholemeally, brown bready sort of thing coming out of this beer. When you go towards the very back third of your palate, you can feel there is a bit more of that toasty graininess there. So yeah, middle third of your palate, you've got a nice smooth breadiness there. On the back third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of, you can feel the breadiness just thickening up a little bit. So I like how that goes together. But yeah, this one for me is quite. It's really the malt base just goes together very well. It's one of these beers where it just fits and everything kind of fits together very, very nicely. This to me, it strikes me as if it would be kind of a sort of gateway beer for, like, you know, traditional beer drinkers in England who are into, you know, the bitters and all of these kind of things. It strikes me that this would be a beer that would be a good gateway into something that is a little bit more hoppy and more adventurous. It's almost like a kind of step in between the English bitter and the American IPA. It's kind of a little bit like that, to be honest with you. That's the impression I really get of this one. But yeah, nice kind of bready and grainy base on this one. If you go to that middle third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of a kind of sweet caramel in there. You've got a little bit of a kind of biscuity quality as well, which I think is really quite nice. And then yeah, that kind of sits there the further you go into the aftertaste. So I think the beer does sweeten up a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste, but you've also got a little bit of more graininess and stuff out of this one as well. So yeah, it strikes me as being very nice, this beer, to be honest with you. So thumbs up to Love Lion for the malt base on this one. This beer actually matches its aroma pretty well, to be honest with you. Flavour matches aroma very well in this beer. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness out of this one, and as you move further forward along the side of the palate, you've got a wee bit of a kind of There is a bit of a herbal kind of quality there, which is quite interesting. I would never associate the American hops with that. There could be a wee I do wonder, is there a bit of English hop in this as well, but not really sure about that. I think the earthiness isn't quite the same, but yeah, you do get a nice little bit of that big kind of spicy floral aromaticity that you would expect of Columbus in this beer. You really get that on the sides of the palate, and it comes out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste, but then as you go round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in my mind, and it's got a wee bit of zestiness to it thanks to the Centennial as well. But as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters push their way out of the beer. And for me, this one, again, it's quite interesting. If you go towards the very back of that front third of your palate, you can get you do get a slightly oily passion fruity note, and that's from the citra, of course, but then very quickly it becomes a slightly more juicy mango, and then you start to get all of these kind of, you get those flavours I was describing earlier. You start to get the peary notes, you start to get a little bit of a kind of sultana type quality in there, maybe a wee bit of that kind of apricot-y kind of thing as well. It's got a very kind of light fruity edge to it, but as you reach as you kind of push towards the kind of front tip of your tongue, that's when you get the more lemony zesty notes out of it that you would expect from the Centennial. But again, that lemony zest is quite oily because of the more kind of caramelly malt base that the beer has. So that's interesting with this one, I have to say. But yeah, I think the kind of graininess in this beer, it's interesting to see Golden Promise like this. I think Golden Promise is the malt in this one that's given it a little bit of the grainy flavour, but we can't forget the contribution that the yeast makes to the beer as well. So maybe the yeast is giving you a few of the kind of grainy elements in this beer as well, because yeast plays an often underestimated role in the flavours of these different beers. Farmhouse ales are the key example of that, where the focus is on the yeast. Belgian beer is obviously very yeast forward as well. But yeah, this one for me, the Golden Promise, I think, is giving you a good bit of the graininess in the malt base of this beer. The biscuit malt, and was it caramel? What's the other one? Yeah, straight out it says caramel. So it has, I mean, obviously it has a little bit of the sweetness and a little bit of the biscuitiness in there, but yeah, you might expect it to have just a little bit more. I wouldn't have expected Golden Promise to be quite as grainy as that, to be honest with you, because obviously a lot of the beers I've had with Golden Promise recently have been the big kind of hazy New England IPAs, so it kind of just goes to show you that oats and the wheat can dominate those beers quite remarkably, to be honest with you. But then again, I don't know the ratios of which these malts are put into the malt base. Of course, most malt bases are primarily pale malt, rather than anything else. So that's another interesting point about this. I wonder what contribution the yeast is making to this one. But overall, as a kind of drinkable, sessionable beer, this one, I think it comes across really nicely. To me, this would be a sort of gateway beer for a traditional English ale drinker. Someone who's into all these bitters and things. This would be a bit of a transition to a more adventurous kind of American style IPA, to be honest with you. So yeah, this would be the sort of beer you would recommend if you're going into the Love Lane bar. This is the sort of one that you would recommend to someone that is a more traditional ale drinker, if you like. So yeah, quite a nice gateway beer, this one for me. In terms of the mouthfeel then, it's kind of bottom end and mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth on this. I find this one has quite an oily mouthfeel. There is a bit of cleanliness to it at the same time. In terms of bitterness, I think this one's about, maybe 40-ish IBUs. I think it's somewhere kind of around there. It's not quite as smooth and juicy as the New England, but it's got a little bit more kind of bitterness to it there, so it's maybe about 40-ish IBUs, somewhere in that kind of region. The malt base, as I say, has a little bit of graininess to it. It's also got a wee bit of smoothness, which I think is very, very nice. And you've also got that lovely kind of slightly oily, fruity character to this one as well. I mean, it's got everything that you could want of a paleo, and as I say, it's been a while since I've had a beer that's been explicitly called a paleo. It's quite an English paleo, this one, but at the same time it does have a few sort of, the hoppiness, the American hoppiness does give you the impression of a more American West Coasty type paleo. So it's a kind of hybrid beer in that sense as well, but definitely an English paleo more than anything. For me, it's the kind of malt base that defines these sort of beers. So I would say this one is an English pale ale for sure, but yeah, wee bit of West Coasty character too. But yeah, a nice beer, this one. Of course, this isn't the most adventurous beer that Love Lane are going to do. It's not the one that's going to blow the face off you and things like that compared to some of the other ones that they do. But yeah, as a core range beer, which is obviously intended as a nice sessioner, it certainly does the job, so thumbs up to them for that. And it's nice to review something like this as a bit of a change of pace, and I think that's maybe what Adam had in mind when he put this one into the box as well, was just to give me something that is a kind of core beer rather than something a little bit more experimental, if you like. So yeah, this was a nice change of pace, so thank you again to Adam for making this review possible. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Love Lane Pale Ale, coming in at 4.5% ABV from Love Lane Brewery in the Baltic Triangle in Liverpool over in England. Yeah, we've got a couple more beers to review from Adam. I think we've got 3 in total, but 2 of them are Imperial Stouts, so I might let those sit for a while, but you will see another. I think the other one is a pale ale as well. You will see another pale ale coming up from Adam's box quite soon, and then the Imperial Stouts, we'll play it by ear because they can obviously sit for a little while. But yeah, it was cool to return to Love Lane once again, and it's been very nice to get a feel for some of these local Liverpool breweries. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Love Lane Brewery as well. These guys are doing some really nice stuff. The Liverpool beer scene seems to be thriving at the moment, which is obviously a very, very good thing, and hopefully you can see a few more Liverpool beer reviews at some point in the fairly near future. But let's leave it at that for this one. The Love Lane Pale Ale, 4.5% ABV from Love Lane Brewery in the Baltic Triangle in Liverpool in England. Thank you again to Adam for making this review possible, and I'll catch you guys later. A lovely kind of gateway beer, this one, to something a little bit more adventurous, should we say. Slàinte, skull, cheers, and thanks for watching.